Imagine this. You're standing in a room full of people. Someone smiles, looks at you, and asks, "So, where are you from?" A simple question. You've answered it hundreds of times in your own language. You know exactly what to say. But today, it's in English. Suddenly, your mouth becomes dry. Your heart beats faster. Your palms begin to sweat. Inside your mind, hundreds of thoughts appear. What if I make a mistake? What if they don't understand me? What if they laugh? Maybe I should just stay quiet. So, instead of speaking, you smile and say nothing. If you've ever experienced this, I want you to know something important. You're not afraid of English. You're afraid of being judged. And those are two very different things. Today, we're going to remove that fear. Not by memorizing more grammar. Not by learning 1,000 new words. But by changing the way your brain sees speaking English. Because confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from being willing to speak. Even when you don't. Let me ask you something. Do you remember the first time you learned to ride a bicycle? Maybe you fell. Maybe you lost your balance. Maybe you were scared. But imagine if you had said, "I'll ride a bicycle only after I'm sure I won't fall." Would you ever have learned? Of course not. Speaking English works exactly the same way. You don't become confident, and then speak. You speak, and then become confident. Now let me tell you about Maya. Maya dreamed of studying in the United States. She spent years studying English. She knew grammar. She knew vocabulary. She understood movies. But whenever someone spoke to her in English, she froze. One day, she attended an international conference. During lunch, a woman from Canada sat beside her and smiled. "Hi. Mind if I sit here?" Maya understood every word. But fear took control. She answered with only one word. "Okay." For the next 15 minutes, she stayed silent. Not because she couldn't speak. Because she was terrified of making a mistake. Later that evening, she couldn't stop thinking about it. She realized something painful. She hadn't missed an English opportunity. She had missed a human opportunity. She could have made a new friend. Shared her story. Learned about another culture. But fear had stolen all of it. The next morning, she made herself one promise. Asterisk today. I'll speak first. Star. Not perfectly. Just first. The next time she entered the conference hall, she smiled at someone and asked, "Where are you from?" A simple question. That one sentence led to a 20-minute conversation. By the end of the conference, she had spoken with people from 6 different countries. Nothing magical had happened. Her English hadn't changed overnight. Her courage had. That's the difference. Fear doesn't disappear before action. Fear disappears because of action. Now imagine you're standing at the edge of a swimming pool. You want to learn how to swim. Would reading 10 books about swimming remove your fear? Probably not. Eventually, you have to get into the water. Speaking English is the same. Every conversation is another step into the pool. The first one feels uncomfortable. The 10th feels easier. The 100th feels normal. Confidence grows through experience, not preparation. Now here's something fascinating. Most people aren't judging your English. They're thinking about themselves. Think about the last conversation you had. Were you counting the other person's grammar mistakes? Probably not. You were listening to their story. The same thing happens when you speak. People care far more about your message than your mistakes. That realization alone can remove so much fear. Now let's try a simple exercise. Imagine introducing yourself. Don't try to sound impressive. Just be real. Asterisk hi. My name is. I'm from. I enjoy. Nice to meet you. Star. Simple. Clear. Human. That's enough. Because confidence isn't about saying extraordinary things. It's about saying ordinary things, without fear. Now, I want you to imagine a little child learning to speak. The child says, "Me want cookie." Not, "I would like a cookie, please." The grammar isn't perfect. The pronunciation isn't perfect. But what do the parents do? Do they laugh? Do they criticize? Do they tell the child to stop speaking until the grammar improves? Of course not. They smile. They encourage. They understand the message. That's how every human being learns a language. By speaking first. Improving later. Somehow, when we become adults, we forget this. We start believing that every sentence has to be perfect. That every word must be correct. That every conversation is an exam. But conversations aren't exams. They're opportunities to connect. Now let me tell you about James. James worked for a global software company. Every week, his team had online meetings with people from different countries. He always kept his microphone muted. Not because he had nothing to say. Because he was afraid. One day, his manager noticed. After the meeting, the manager asked, "James, you always send great ideas in email. Why don't you share them during meetings?" James quietly replied, "I'm afraid my English isn't good enough." The manager smiled. Then he said something James never forgot. "Your silence is a bigger problem than your English." That sentence changed everything. The next meeting, James forced himself to speak just once. His voice shook. He made 2 grammar mistakes. He forgot one word. Do you know what happened? Nothing. Nobody laughed. Nobody interrupted him. His teammates simply answered his idea. They cared about the solution, not the grammar. That day, James discovered something powerful. The fear in his imagination was much bigger than reality. How often do we imagine the worst? Everyone will laugh. I'll embarrass myself. People will think I'm stupid. But how often does that actually happen? Very rarely. Most people are kind. Especially when they know you're speaking a language that isn't your first. In fact, many people admire anyone who has the courage to learn another language. Now here's an exercise I want you to try. The next time you're afraid to speak English, ask yourself one simple question. What's the worst thing that could realistically happen? Maybe you forget a word. Maybe someone asks you to repeat. Maybe you make a grammar mistake. That's it? Now ask yourself another question. Can I survive that? Absolutely. Every single time. Fear becomes much smaller when you look at it honestly. Now let's talk about embarrassment. Many learners think embarrassment is something to avoid. Actually, embarrassment is often a sign of growth. Think about the first time you rode a bicycle. The first time you gave a presentation. The first time you drove a car. The first time you interviewed for a job. Those moments probably felt uncomfortable. But they also made you stronger. English is no different. Every uncomfortable conversation is building a more confident version of you. Now imagine you're in a cafe. The cashier asks, "Would you like anything else?" You don't understand. Many learners pretend they understood. They smile, pay, and leave. But a confident learner says, "Sorry, could you say that again?" Or, "Could you speak a little more slowly?" That's not weakness. That's confidence. Because confident people aren't afraid to ask for help. In fact, native speakers ask each other to repeat things all the time. Communication is a shared responsibility. Not your responsibility alone. Now here's another challenge. Stop apologizing for your English. Many learners begin every conversation by saying, "sorry. My English is bad." Think about what that does to your confidence. Before you've even spoken, you've already convinced yourself that you'll fail. Instead, begin with a smile. Speak. If you make a mistake, keep going. Don't apologize for learning. Be proud of learning. Learning another language is difficult. The fact that you're trying already deserves respect. Now let's imagine it's your first day at the gym. Would you expect to lift the heaviest weights? No. You'd start small. Speaking English works the same way. Don't begin with a 30-minute conversation. Begin with 1 sentence. Tomorrow, 2 sentences. Next week, 5. Small victories create lasting confidence. Confidence isn't built in one giant leap. It's built one small success at a time. Now I want you to remember something. Every fluent English speaker, even native speakers, has experienced moments of embarrassment. They've forgotten words. They've said the wrong thing. They've corrected themselves. Nobody speaks perfectly all the time. The difference is, they don't stop speaking because of it. They simply continue. And that's exactly what I want you to do. Continue. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it's messy. Even when your voice shakes. Because every sentence you speak is another brick in the foundation of your confidence. Now, I want you to imagine your future self. 1 year from today. You're sitting in a cafe. A tourist walks over and asks, "Excuse me, is the seat taken?" Without thinking, you smile. Go ahead. A conversation begins. You talk about travel, work, food, life. 20 minutes pass. Then suddenly, you realize something. You haven't been worrying about your grammar. You haven't been translating. You haven't been searching for words. You've simply been talking. That moment won't feel dramatic. It won't feel magical. In fact, it may feel completely ordinary. And that's exactly the point. Fluency isn't when English feels exciting. Fluency is when English feels normal. Now let me ask you something. What if you never become fearless? Would that mean you should never speak? Of course not. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is speaking, while fear is still there. Think about firefighters, doctors, pilots, athletes. Do you think they never feel nervous? They do. The difference is, they've learned to act anyway. English confidence works the same way. Don't wait for fear to disappear. Speak while you're still nervous. Eventually, your brain realizes nothing bad happened. And little by little, fear becomes smaller. Now let's play a game. Imagine someone compliments your English. Instead of saying, "Oh, it's terrible," or "I'm not good," try saying, "Thank you. I'm still learning." Can you hear the difference? The first answer destroys your confidence. The second one accepts the compliment, while staying humble. Start respecting your own progress. Because if you don't, your brain never feels successful. Now here's another habit that confident speakers have. They celebrate small wins. Maybe today, you introduced yourself in English. Celebrate it. Maybe you asked for directions. Celebrate it. Maybe you spoke for 1 minute without stopping. Celebrate it. Success isn't only reaching fluency. Success is every step toward fluency. Now imagine climbing a mountain. Would you only celebrate when you reach the top? No. You'd celebrate reaching each checkpoint. Otherwise, the journey would feel impossible. Language learning is exactly the same. Every conversation matters. Every new word matters. Every moment of courage matters. Now let's talk about mistakes again. Imagine two learners. The first learner speaks every day. Makes mistakes. Gets corrected. Keeps improving. The second learner waits until their English is perfect. Never speaks. 1 year later, who is more fluent? The answer is obvious. Mistakes don't slow learning. Avoiding mistakes slows learning. Here's another powerful exercise. Record yourself speaking English for 2 minutes. Don't stop. Don't edit. Don't restart. Then listen to it. Not to criticize yourself. To notice your progress. Maybe you'll discover that your pronunciation is better than you thought. Maybe you'll realize your grammar isn't as bad as you imagined. Most learners are much better than they believe. Their biggest obstacle isn't English. It's self-doubt. Now I want you to think about someone you admire. Maybe an entrepreneur, an athlete, a musician, a scientist. Do you think they succeeded without looking foolish sometimes? Absolutely not. Every successful person has failed publicly. The only difference is, they kept going. So why should learning English be any different? Now here's something I want you to remember forever. When you speak English, you're doing something incredibly brave. You're communicating in a language that wasn't the language of your childhood. That takes courage. And courage deserves respect, not criticism. Now let's imagine it's your first international trip. You arrive at the airport. You ask questions. You order food. You check into your hotel. You meet people from around the world. Not because your English is perfect, but because you refuse to let fear control your life. That's the real reward of learning English. Not higher test scores. Not perfect grammar. Freedom. The freedom to travel. The freedom to work anywhere. The freedom to build friendships across cultures. The freedom to share your ideas with the world. That's why confidence matters so much. It unlocks opportunities that fear keeps locked. Now here's my challenge for you. For the next 7 days, do one thing every day that scares you a little in English. Ask one question. Start one conversation. Leave one voice message. Introduce yourself. Comment on an English video. Speak to yourself in the mirror. Read aloud for 5 minutes. One small act of courage. Every day. At the end of the week, you won't be a completely different person, but you'll be a slightly braver version of yourself. And that's how confidence grows. Not overnight. One courageous moment at a time. Remember this. Confidence isn't something fluent people are born with. It's something ordinary people build, by speaking before they feel ready. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for perfect English. Don't wait until fear disappears. Speak today. Learn today. Grow today. Because every sentence you say, is one step away from fear, and one step closer to fluency. One day, someone will ask, how did you become so confident in English? And you'll smile. Because you'll know the answer. You didn't become confident, and then start speaking. You started speaking. And that's how you became confident. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this lesson encouraged you, don't let it be just another video you watched. Turn it into action. Say one sentence in English today that you were too afraid to say yesterday. That's how confidence begins. I'll see you in the next lesson. Until then, keep believing in yourself, keep speaking, keep growing, and remember, the world isn't waiting for perfect English. The world is waiting to hear your voice.